Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Joe Salemi, and I'm the Product Marketing Manager with DynaSCAPE Software. I'd like to thank you for joining us this afternoon, taking some time out of your day to sit in on the webinar that we're hosting, Designing for Profitability. Leading today's webinar is Patrick DuChene. He's with DuChene Design Solutions. He resides in Branchburg, New Jersey, and is a professional landscape designer with clients all over North America. And today we're going to be focusing on how to design for profitability and just in all aspects of the design process. In all aspects of that design process to think about profit in mind. And I'm sure that's why we had so many people sign up for today's webinar. So we are going to be recording this webinar, and so just a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to be recording today. So once today's webinar has been finished, we will post it to the DynaSCAPE website, and we'll be sending the link out to everyone that's registered. So if you can't stay with us the whole time, we anticipate the webinar to be about an hour, but if you can't stay with us the whole time, it is going to be posted and we will send it to everyone. So fear not. And for those that couldn't join us, you will get that a little bit later. So we're going to be looking at the optimal design studio, the best computer specifications, tracking design time, review of the most effective design process, so Patrick will take us through that, internal and external communication practices, estimating during the design, and considering materials and labor. And so like I said, we're going to be recording the webinar. It is going to be posted to DynaSCAPE.com. We'll send out the specific link. Please ask lots of questions. So there's a questions box. Please ask questions there, and we'll try to get to them all. There's a lot of people on today's webinar, so we'll get to as many as time allows. And sit back, relax. I'm going to hand it off now to Patrick. Hey, Patrick, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Right on. So I'm going to give you control of the screen so you can control the presentation. And
okay.
It's now completely over to you. And just want to say thanks for taking the time to spend the webinar with us today and share with us your expertise. I know you've been doing this for a long time, and you know, design is something that you got into on a full-time basis back, was it 2013?
Yes. So it's been, this is my third year now with my business.
Cool. Hey, so I'm just going to get you to open up that PowerPoint presentation because we're
okay.
going to see browser on your screen.
Sure. Hold on one second.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, and so I'll just get you to start playing that.
Sure. So hello everybody. This is obviously a little bit different format than what we normally do. I'm usually flying around a computer screen and DynaSCAPE design in color. So this one's a little bit more of a stationary kind of a presentation, so maybe your eyes won't go cross as much with me not moving around so fast. So like Joe said, I own a landscape design business, and I have over 50 customers across the United States where my sole responsibility is to provide them with design services, whether they may be designing, 3D modeling, animations, helping them estimate their jobs. Some of the companies they do not have a designer, so I'm their primary designer. Some have a designer, and I kind of help them keep their workflow going, kind of reduce those bottlenecks in their pipeline. So I do this every day. I'm a really kind of a driven individual who I really try to maximize my time, be the most efficient as I can, and along the way I kind of do a lot of experimentation as far as computers, what kind of setup is best for me, what makes me feel more comfortable when I'm working, what puts me in the right state of mind to feel like I can attack my job and do it as efficiently as possible so I can be as profitable as I can, and I can do my services for my clients as affordably as I can for them too. So there's a lot that goes into designing for profit, but you know what? It really starts with some basic things, and that is you. We all sit at a desk, whether you are using a computer or you're sitting at a drafting board. We all know that the more comfortable we are, the better off we are. For me, it's very psychological. If I'm just not comfortable or my arms aren't in the right position, I'm not working at full capacity. And it's interesting. I'm really lucky to go to DynaSCAPE software conferences and trade shows where I sit at the booth with them. I meet with customers and potential customers, and I show them how to use the software. And they rent these tables. They're these high tables, kind of like bar height tables. And we sit at those and we meet people. And I am probably 30% less efficient working at one of those tables than when I am at my desk because I'm out of my comfort zone and I'm not comfortable. So, and it's something I'm not used to. I'm sure if I sat there for a few days I'd get used to it. But so the more comfortable you are, the better off you are. And so there are a few things that go into that. Your desk height, that's very important. They sell adjustable desks. You can raise the height. I'm not a really big guy, so I don't need a really adjustable desk that gets real high. Your arm position, that's crucial. That really has a lot of effect on your wrist positions and how they're sitting on your desk, which ultimately can lead to carpal tunnel type of symptoms with pain in your wrists and everything. And that's the last thing you need to be doing is dealing with pain in the wrists while you're working. Distance from your eyes to your computer monitor. That's something that I'm always kind of toying around with, and that kind of depends on a few things. It depends on your eyesight, how good your eyes are. Depends on how big your monitor is, how big your desk is, the resolution of your monitor. So the recommended distance is 20 to 40 inches away from your eyes. So this is something you want to do maybe when nobody's around because you might look kind of funny, but take a tape measure and take the end of the tape measure and put it to your monitor and mark your finger on where the tape measure meets your eyes, and you're going to see how kind of far away you're sitting. If you're sitting in that 20 to 40 inch range, you're fine. My range where I'm comfortable is 32, which is pretty darn in the middle of that. So whoever, I did some research on this, some like eye doctor or some ophthalmologist, they've done tests, and that's really the way to go. Lighting is another really important part. I'm still doing some research and trying to figure out the best lighting for me too. I'm looking into maybe trying to get more natural light. But if your lighting in your room is not the best, or if it's not good for you, your eyes are going to strain, and you have a different if you have like too much contrast between the two lights, your eyes are going to get affected too. And I definitely noticed that. So I'm still trying to kind of work on that too to maximize it. And so these things, if you can optimize these immediately, like tomorrow or after we get finished with the webinar, at least get yourself set up where you're comfortable. I have 2 desks I work at. I think I spent a total of $300 on both of them. They're from IKEA. They're pretty cool, and you know, they're nice and comfortable. I didn't have to spend a ton of money. I can put 3 monitors on them if I want to. So you don't, you know, the chair I have, it's from, I think, where did I get it? Staples. It was maybe $150 or $200. So, you know, you don't have to go out and spend tons and tons of money on these hyper, what's the word? I'm blanking out.
Super ergonomic.
Yes, thank you. Right. Yeah, like
Yeah.
ergonomic equipment. So this obviously is not something you want to show up to work with every day. However, it does look like in the bottom here they do have a to-do list on the floor. So at one point,
like
this person, what's that?
Kind of looks like my desk. Hey, push play on that presentation and give us full screen on that.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me scroll through down. Let me go down here. Oh, okay, I got you. We're going through these.
There you go.
Here we are, back to our desk. Okay.
There we go. Yeah.
All right, thanks. So they do have it. They did have the need to go get a to-do list, but obviously they didn't do it. It doesn't even look like there's any writing on it. So this is not a desk that you want to show up to, and I would think it would be almost as uncomfortable and unproductive as it would be. I think it would. The worst part would be how embarrassing this would be if you're in an office setting. So you don't want to be that guy with this desk.
Yeah,
this is great. This is great. Very clean, simple. This is a super ergonomic kind of chair here. I like the arm of the monitor where you could adjust that. That's really cool. Now, down on the floor here, I don't even know what it's called. Let's just call it a footrest. But I just bought one of those about a year ago, and I think I spent maybe $40 or $50 from Amazon, and Amazon Prime, it was here in 2 days. That was one of the best things I've spent my money on. Because I used to work at a drafting table. I had my monitor set up on a drafting table, and I'd kind of rest my feet on one of the back braces, and then I decided I want to kind of clean things up a little bit. So I was working at my desk, and I just stumbled across one of these to help my back. And it has really been a blessing having this this footrest where my knees are a little bit more even with my everything is just a little bit more comfortable with that. So everybody go grab one of those. They're not ridiculously expensive. If you really want to get the Ferrari of one, they have them where they heat. They have the vibration feature in it where it can give you a little foot massage during work, but I don't know. I don't think that's really necessary. This is really nice too. I mean, I really don't need to say much about this. It's just very clean, simple. Whoever's this office is, they probably know where everything is because there's really nothing in the office anyway other than a stack of paper. So,
well, they also have to be a pretty seriously high up senior level designer to get the corner office with all windows.
Right. Yeah, they're like on the 100th floor or something like that. So yeah, that's pretty slick. This is okay. Whoever's desk this is, they're probably a gamer because they've got their Xbox 360 with a couple of games and their controllers. But multiple monitor setups are good, but this is a little bit like, you're going to be sitting really close to this desk. This big monitor's right in your face, and there's really no space on this desk to do anything else as far as take notes when you're talking with a customer or have any pictures of your family. So this is a little bit small, and I would try to stay away from things like this. And like I said, I've been through a lot of computers. I've been through quite a few setups, and I just know that I don't want you going out spending money on something like this because you get a good deal on it and then you hate it because you can't return a desk. You can give it to somebody that hopefully will want it. So this stand-up method, I was training somebody in Cleveland last year, and he had his monitor set up. It wasn't like this, but he had it set up on this device, and where he's like, he could sit down. It was a drafting table, but he can sit down and work at it. But if he wants to, he can stand up. So he raises the monitor up, and I've done a little bit of reading about this, and what I'm seeing is it's really good for you to do because you are, you're allowing your back to decompress a little bit. Well, not decompress, but you're not sitting in that position we're sitting in all day long, which our backs are not built for. So really kind of an interesting thing. I've thought about it, but I'm not sure. That might be a couple years away. And you need a really beefy desk, too, because these things are heavy. And I think they're a few $100s, but they're definitely worth looking into. That's a nice Thunderbolt.
Yeah, one of the reasons that I wanted to show this particular setup, what I really like is the ability to stand up and the large space to be able to take notes or actually step aside and do a sketch. But if you look to his right, see how he's got that wall break of these cubes, almost like origami cubes? Just creates a visual barrier for him so that when he's doing his design work, it takes any kind of distraction from that side of the room away.
Yeah.
Kind of,
yeah.
Yeah, especially since he's got a door right there.
Yeah, this is nice. He's got a nice Thunderbolt monitor there too, which are really, really nice. So if you want to buy a dentist's chair and hook your monitors up to that, that's an option too. I got to tell you, I have never ever seen this setup until I saw this picture that you snuck in here, Joe. But you know what? I'm sure it's really comfortable to do, but it's really interesting. I don't even know where you found that.
But you'd like
this is Overkill.
This is your setup, isn't it?
I know. Well, Joe, you weren't supposed to tell anybody that, but now this is definitely Overkill, and I have no idea what this would be other than maybe like looks like something out of like one of those war game movies back in the 80s or 90s or something. But this is there's too much stuff going on here, and I'm going to get into quantity of monitors in a minute because my philosophy is starting to change a little bit with how many is the best. But obviously it's all personal preference. So what I'm telling everybody and what Joe and I are suggesting is not like the way to do it, but Joe meets a lot of people and he sees a lot of people and goes to a lot of offices and he sees how his clients are doing things. So between what he experiences and my sometimes intense desire to have the best setup I can, there's some good information between the two of us. But again, you do what you think is best for you. Let's just go back to the monitor thing real quick. Well, no, actually, we'll get to that because we're going to jump back into some monitor things. So computer specs. I am so passionate about this topic. I probably buy 2 to 3 computers a year. I buy them and then I sell them maybe 3 or 4 months later because I want the latest and greatest, and my wife thinks I'm absolutely insane. However, when you do what I do and what a lot of you are doing, we're trying to do our job as fast as we can and as efficiently as we can. And the last thing we want is for anything to bottleneck us other than our brains. You can't buy brains, but you can buy a computer and you can buy a monitor. So the things you have control over, control them if you can afford to do it and you're smart about it. So what I do and what I think is a great idea for people who who are doing computer-aided drafting, whether they're using DynaSCAPE or Lumion or SketchUp or other design programs, you're obviously going to have a main workstation. Kind of techie computer guys call those their daily drivers, and that word's kind of been sneaking into my head where I'm saying that more and more, but you're going to have a daily driver, and your daily driver needs to be a workhorse. It needs to be something that It needs to be something that does everything that you want it to do and more. Don't buy a computer when you want to buy DynaSCAPE design or you want to do 3D modeling and just try to save money. Don't buy it at all if you can't buy the right machine, because what's going to happen is you're going to get something that is not going to allow you want to push it as hard as you can. And if you can't push it as hard as you can and your brain's working faster than your computer's able to respond, it's going to be frustrating. And we all know how frustrating it is when our computers are not responding the way we want, whether there's a problem with the software or if it's a problem with the hardware. Sometimes it's a problem with us, but we won't admit that. Let's just blame it on the computer and the software. So you want a main workstation, but if you can pull it off, have a secondary machine. So a main workstation would be something like a desktop or a real high-powered, maybe 15-inch monitor or even a 17-inch monitor. But a secondary machine would be like a 13-inch laptop. It's a great size machine to sit on the couch, catch up on your emails. It's a really nice machine for traveling. I used to buy Asus Republic of Gamers 17-inch laptop. Not that I'm a gamer, but for back, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago, those were really those for Asus. I like Asus. They were the powerhouse machines. But now technology is changing so quickly that they're able to put a lot of power into small devices. So if you can get yourself like a 13-inch machine that has some muscle to it, you can do quite a bit of things on the couch. My daily driver, I just switched last week back to a desktop because I've got it's maxed out to the core because I'm using a new program that I'll talk about in a second. But then I've got a MacBook Pro that kind of sits on the desk. It's not collecting dust yet, but I don't use it now because the graphics card isn't as beefy. But then I got a 13-inch computer that is a pretty darn muscular computer that I spent maybe $1,200 on, and I can 3D model on it. I can do design work. I can color on it. I can do PowerPoint. I can do all kinds of things. I can't do 3D rendering on it because it's really heavy processor stuff, but it's really nice being able to sit on the couch at night when the kids go to bed or everything's settled down and just spend 30 minutes to catch up, and it makes a big difference on just your mental state to know that some of those things are put to bed. So there are some core components to this, and I'll just kind of move through this without going into them too much. RAM. RAM is kind of your computer's ability to multitask and pull information, and 16 gigs of RAM is what I'm suggesting to have on your daily driver. 12, super duper minimum, but as programs become more robust and more resource hungry, you want to start beefing these things up. So try to get 12 gigs of RAM, which is what my little 13-inch is. 16 is great. My daily driver or my desktop has 32 gigs on it, and I think now on some just normal consumer grade machines, you can beef them up to 64 gigs of RAM, which that's starting to get a little bit extreme. I think 32 is a pretty good top. Plus, you're starting to spend a lot of money that I don't know if you're going to get really a return on your dollar. This is the biggest bottleneck in a computer, in my opinion. I just started really figuring this out a few years ago. I always thought it was about the RAM and the processor, which it is. But the drive, where you store all your information, this is a massively critical area to have a good piece of hardware. So there's 3 different types. In simple terms, there's 3 different types of storage. There's a traditional hard drive, which is really the old-fashioned kind of a drive. It has a disk in it. It spins. There's 2 different speeds. There's a 5400 and a 7200. That kind of dictates which one's faster. Those are really what a lot of computer manufacturers are still putting in the computers, basically because they're cheap. They're pretty darn stable, but they're cheap. and in my opinion, they're just dinosaur slow now. There are solid-state drives, which are faster. So like a traditional hard drive, you're going to have read-write speeds, of which basically means it's megabytes per second. You'll get, I can't remember anymore, it's 30 or 50 or something megs per second, something like that. It's low. Solid-state drives were a revolutionary kind of a drive where you're going to get more like 500 megs per second. So think of if you have a hard drive in your computer, think of a drive that's 10 times faster. So what that's going to do is that is going to allow your computer to start up much faster. It's going to allow you to open programs much faster. It's going to allow you to access information quicker and save files faster. So I'm sure a lot of you listening right now are thinking about the misery of when you turn your computer on and then you walk away and you make a cup of coffee, and I'll bet a lot of you are laughing right now because that's what happens. I was at church the other day and my pastor turned his laptop on. He said, I'm going to go downstairs and get a cup of coffee and I'm going to come back and it should be ready, because I was going to tweak his computer. And I said, I got to put a new drive in your computer. So get rid of that bottleneck. Update your drive to something like a solid-state drive and really speed your computer up. If you really want to get fancy, you can get a flash drive, which I'm still learning more about the technology of this and upgrading to that. But like MacBook Pros, Asus ZenBook Pros, a lot of the nicer high-end machines now, they're going to flash storage. So a traditional drive, you're going to get maybe 30, 40, 50 megs a second. Solid-state drive, you might get 500. Flash drive, you're going to get like 1,300. So it's just instant performance. So big deal. Processor. The processor kind of really makes everything happen. And Intel makes three different kind of categories of these that we would want to use. An i3, I wouldn't buy an i3. Don't buy an i3 unless you're just doing super basic stuff. Like, I'm thinking about buying my mom a computer. I don't even think I will buy her an i3 because I don't even want her getting bottlenecked with stuff, even though all she's doing is checking emails and you know, checking the Drudge report or whatever. But minimum, do an i5. If you're just going to be doing basic performance things like DynaSCAPE software, for example, it is so resource friendly. It does not take much of any resources. I've run it on a 10-inch tablet with 2 gigs of RAM and not even this caliber of a processor, and it worked just fine. So i5 minimum, but please, if you really want to push things, get an i7 processor, get a quad-core processor. It's a core. The concept of cores is when you're driving down a highway, the more highways there are, the more lanes there are, the more cars you can get through, which equates to information in your computer. So there are i7 dual-core computers, which is what my little 13-inch is, but it does just great. Your graphics card. This is a big deal. Again, like a resource-friendly system like a DynaSCAPE software doesn't really need that much. I mean, if you look at the minimum requirements online, Joe, I can't remember. Is it 1 gig or 2 gigs or 512 megs, or it's low, right?
Yeah, so, you know, as a minimum requirement, we need 1 gig of RAM. I think it was a Pentium processor, and dedicated graphics or integrated graphics are just fine.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's not a resource-heavy program at all.
Right. Now, there are some resource-heavy programs. So here are a couple, like SketchUp. You want a good graphics card for SketchUp. You want something like a 2 gig graphics card for SketchUp. I'm not sure what the maximum amount of RAM that SketchUp even uses, but I was able to use SketchUp and everything just great with my MacBook Pro, and it's maxed out. It's got the fastest graphics card, second to fastest processor they have. Once I jumped into a program called Lumion, which I'm teaching myself right now, they recommend 4 gigs of RAM. And I'm telling you, I noticed an absolute huge difference in performance. In Lumion, it's really, really cool. In software, I don't know, maybe a suggestion for Joe, but a lot of I think it would be cool if software programs did what Lumion does, where when you install it and you open it up, you can run a performance test, and it tells you how your computer stacks up as far as how it will perform, and it shows you these bars. And when I ran that test on my MacBook, it has a 2 gig graphics card. It's supposed to be really good, but it didn't get very good. What's the word? It didn't get really good results for the graphics stuff. But my computer, my desktop with a 4 gig gaming card in it, got like maximum of everything except a couple bars low of the graphics or the processor. So make sure. So the moral of the story with this stuff is this: know what you're going to be using, what your software programs are, and what their requirements are, and base your purchase on those requirements. Don't. I know it's not. Telling you not to base your purchase on your budget is really not kind of a good way to say it, because that's kind of how we base our purchases. But don't buy something that's not going to work, because you're going to save your money for a little bit longer and get the right tool to do your job. So, the screen resolution revolution. As we all work on computers longer and longer, I know we all find our eyes start to get tired and bloodshot and dry, and things start looking fuzzy. So over the last year, I've spent a lot of time really upgrading monitors and things, and it's just made a huge, huge difference. And you know, this 4K thing, like a year ago, they were all saying, yeah, well, there's not a lot of content that works with it, and there's not a lot of movies that work with it, and whatever, and it's kind of overrated. Well, I think things are changing, and I disagree with that now. Like, I've got a MacBook, or not a MacBook, I've got a Thunderbolt display that's a real high-resolution display. It's awesome, but I can't use it with my desktop because it won't connect to a desktop. So I bought a 34-inch wide, almost 4K monitor last week, and I'm working off of one monitor now. I used to have 3 on my desk. I have 1, and I can fit DynaSCAPE Design, Color, and SketchUp all on one monitor, and the resolution is absolutely incredible, and I haven't felt this good about sitting at my desk for a long time. It's clean, but I can see things really clearly. The text is sharp. Windows 10, if you can upgrade to that, do it, because they've solved a lot of the scaling issues where font would be way too small. Like SketchUp 2016, I opened up the other day and I realized I had it running at like a really really good resolution, and everything wasn't teeny tiny like it was before. So it was great. So we'll get through the screen thing real quick. Try, if you're going to have multiple screens, try to have them the same size as each other. It will be much easier on you. This is kind of chaos. I mean, they might be good monitors, but can you imagine having Word on one, Outlook on one, designing on one, and something else? Your head is constantly bobbling around, and it really just becomes annoying. And you know what? With 3 monitors on one desk, I just started myself. I started feeling like I was at a tennis match, sitting at center court, like bouncing my head back and forth, and I just got kind of tired of it. So I threw this big monitor on my desk, and I don't think I'm ever going to go back. So 2 monitors is great, 3 is good, but I'm starting to kind of get away from pushing 3 monitors. This is nice, 2 monitors. Those look like they're maybe 24-inch, 21-inch monitors. 21-inch is a nice size. 24 is a great size. 24 inches is a really good size monitor. Then they go up to like 27 and bigger, but 27 is kind of huge, where you're looking up and down and left and right too. So the good thing about computer stuff like this is if you don't like it, you can return it. So just take care of it and return it if you don't like it. So now that we're past kind of the ergonomic and the the toy kind of things, now we want to start getting into the nitty-gritty of time. So what is time? Time is something that we cannot create. We can't make time. All we can do is manage our time. So to manage our time, we want to make sure whatever we're doing is efficient and productive as possible. And I think my wife made this up the other day when she made the original PowerPoint, which is kind of clever. Wasted time's wasted profit. And it's so true. You know, in our industry, we are all used to tracking our labor and tracking our materials, which is absolutely crucial. And if you're not doing that, please try to start doing it, because it shows you how you're doing from a production standpoint. It helps you know how you're doing as far as profitability and loss. And I mean, this is something this is Joe's wheelhouse, because he's with you know, I'm not to push products or anything, but DynaSCAPE Manage, that's the big deal with that, with the time and the labor. But how many of you designers, or how many designers are actually tracking your time? It's very easy to track a crew leader or a laborer. They have timesheets. It's very easy to track our materials. We have material lists. We have work orders. We have foremen out in the field that can be writing down when they get the material, how much they use, so we can review that against what we actually estimated. But none of that stuff happens. Well, that's not true. What I was going to say is none of that happens without the design process. So obviously you can sell a patio to somebody on a napkin, or you can sell it to them by saying, okay, we're going to do a 20 or 950 square foot patio at $18 a square foot. Yeah, that's fine. But as far as the traditional way of the process, it starts with a design. So getting into a practice and starting to think about tracking your time as a designer is going to help ensure that your company is not losing money before you've even sold a job. So as important as it is, and as kind of a basic of a concept as it sounds like, it's really surprising how little I see this done in the industry. Joe, from your experience with traveling to companies and talking with people, what's your take on how, the amount of people that are actually designers doing this?
That actually track design time?
Yeah.
So lots of companies build the design time into a general condition as part of the estimate, but a detailed timesheet for a designer is definitely not in the majority. And going to compare what was estimated as far as how long the design should have taken versus how long it actually did, I would say that definitely is not in the majority of the companies that would actually do that. And
right.
If you talk to 100 landscape design build companies, they would all tell you that they want to do it. Probably 25 would say they actually are doing it, and as many would probably say that they like the way that they're doing it, or could probably improve a little bit.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I was thinking maybe 20 or 25% of them are doing it. So with tracking your design time, so there's this thing called production rates, and a lot of you probably know what that is. What a production rate is it's kind of like an estimated time that it takes to do a certain task. I remember years ago when I was really learning about production, I was always trying to find like a book of production rates of what's a standard, like a good example, like how much time should you estimate or should you budget a crew to install a 2 to 2.5 inch caliper tree? Or how much time should we estimate for our crew with normal soils to excavate, I don't know, 200 square feet at a 10 or 12 inch depth? Those are production rates. And the importance of production rates is so when we do a design or we do estimate a project, we can throw those rates at those tasks so we know how much time to give our crews to do the work. So in an estimate, if you have, let's just take for example a 1 gallon container, and most guys are figuring 5 minutes to 6 minutes, something like that, per 1 gallon container. So if you have 100 of those, you have 500 minutes divided by 60 minutes is however many hours. So those are production rates. They are used for everything. How long it takes you to dig a 10-foot long trench for Schedule 40 pipe, or how long it takes to install I don't know, an irrigation head. Those are big deals. So we kind of need to try to do that as far as design goes. So and part of the importance of that is because you want to try to get to a stage or a point where you're charging for your designs. And if you're charging for your designs, you really need to get a good gauge on how long it takes you to do certain things. So there's no difference. So I almost approach, if a client sends me photos of a job and the survey and all the items, we talk on the phone, they tell me what they want me to do, I hang up the phone with them. I don't hang up on them. I hang up the phone with them after we're finished, and I look at those things that we need to do in the drawing, and I almost attack those as tasks. So they want an outdoor kitchen. Okay, what do we need to do in the outdoor kitchen? How big is it? How long do I think I need to budget in a design to do this outdoor kitchen? We need to design a pool, but we don't want any pool. We want this goofy pool with all these different things that were sent to me in a picture from house.com or something, and we got to develop this to work in the space. How long is that going to take? So when I am given a design project, I will write down, just like a lot of you do already, install patio, 60 hours, install back plants, 25 hours, install irrigation, 120 hours, and we add all those up and we get a good idea of how long it's going to take to do that installation. So I attack my work the same way, and I think if you think of it that way, it's going to make it much easier for you to price these, because the last thing you want to do is this. You don't want to be giving somebody a design fee that is less than the amount of time that you think it needs to take. And vice versa, you don't want to be overcharging for your designs because, God knows it's hard enough for a lot of landscape companies to charge for their designs as it is. And the last thing you want to do is go in with a design fee that is too much. So you want to start looking at how long it takes you traditionally, or that's the best way I can explain it, as you watch what you're doing and you're tracking things, how long it kind of takes you to do things. And if you need to, if you did a drawing with, and I do it often too, where there's a job that's similar in size and scope to something I did before, I'll look up a timesheet. I'll look up an invoice that I sent somebody or a timesheet, and I'll look at how many hours it took me to do that, and that will give me a good gauge of how long it'll take. And for individuals watching this webinar right now who do what I do, who are you might be freelance designers, or you're designing for a landscape company, but you're kind of your own business. You don't want to be giving inconsistent design fees either, because you know, the world is savvy now, and it's especially a lot of landscape company business owners. And when you're sending them a design fee or an invoice for a design that's 500, and a design that you did 3 weeks ago was 250, and it was about the same thing, they're going to question it. And the first thing they're going to think is you're trying to gouge them and get more money out of the design because you just need to. So this all goes into why you need to start looking at this. So just like I said, it's helping you accurately price your design fees. And as far as your design schedule, this is crucial. So a few years ago, I worked for a business, and this was before I started tracking design time. And I don't mean to sound like I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about how I do things and kind of what I've learned. So I worked for an individual who probably is one of the most detailed, focused guys I've ever met, businessmen I've ever met. He knows every dollar that's coming in and out. He knows what everything's going on in his business, very profitable business, and he charges for every single drawing. Very high-end company. And these drawings are $1,500 to $2,500 to $3,000. So what he did was we would have to fill out a weekly timesheet, and that would be turned into the. It was either hand turned in, or I think it was emailed maybe once a week. And what that did was it allowed him and the company to track how long we were spending on designs. And what that did was it made sure that we weren't spending more time than what we needed to on our drawings. But what started happening as I did this a little bit was I started realizing first I didn't like it, because who wants to be writing down all their times every time they start and stop something? It's kind of a pain. But once you start doing that, you start seeing patterns of how long certain things are taking. And as a designers, I mean, what is it, January what? It's almost February. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but this is the busiest January I've ever had, and it's not like I've been around for 50 years, but for the middle of January, the end of January, I've got a lot of work going on, and all my clients have a lot of things going on, and I think a lot of it's the mild weather. Of course, we're going to get 12 to 18 inches of snow in 2 days, so that's kind of goes out the door there. But what it does is it helps you gauge your design schedule. So when you are tracking these things and you start really paying attention to how long certain tasks are taking you, when you start getting this massive influx and overwhelming amount of designs in the next really 6 to 8 weeks, I mean mid-February, late February is really the big push, it's going to be easy for you to put those on a calendar. And a great idea for you to do is to have a design calendar. You know, if you have a wall at your office, you could paint with magnetic paint and put up a big 24 by 36 inch calendar with some magnets, and go buy yourself some magnet things you can write on. Just write the customer name. If it's Peters and you think it's going to take you 30 hours, just put Peters 30 hours and put it on Monday. And so you know on, let's see, if you're doing 8-hour days, it's 32 hours, it's 4 days. So Thursday you should be finished with that drawing. So the next job that you get coming in, you can put that on your calendar for Friday. So when someone calls you or your boss comes in and notoriously throws something at you last minute because he kind of put it off and says, I need this for tonight at 5 o'clock, sorry. Well, you don't really want to say, no, I can't do it. But if somebody gives you a reasonable approach of, here's another drawing, you can look at a calendar and you can say, unless I shift things around, this is when I can do this drawing. And it's a very, I don't know if liberating is the right word, but it's a very reassuring thing when you can look at a calendar and you just know where you are with your drawings and how far out scheduled you are. And it takes a lot of stress off of you when you do have, you're going on sales calls. It takes a lot of pressure off of you when before you leave the office, or if you have it maybe on your Google Calendar or something, you can look at a calendar with them and say, listen, I have 4 drawings to do. I am booked out for 8 days. I can get your drawing started on this day, and once I start the drawing, it should take me approximately a day, 2 days, 3 days. And again, when you think about the production end, we're doing no different than what your salesperson or your owner, or maybe you if you're out selling and managing work, it's nothing different than what you would tell a customer as far as a job, because they all ask us, when can you start the job? And sometimes you cringe because you're 12 weeks out and they want it done in 3, and you might lose the job because you can't do it in time. And they ask, well, if I have you do the drawing, how soon can you get me back a drawing? And you tell them, this is when I can do it. And then, you tell them it'll be due in 2 weeks, and they probably call you in 3 days asking how the design's going. So then you just remind them, I told you it would be done then, but thanks for calling. Beautiful designs are great. It's important to have nice-looking drawings, but if it's taking you too long to do these things, it's kind of counterproductive, and it's really not benefiting you much. So, how do we do this? Timesheets. I have a timesheet set up where whenever I start and stop something, I put the time in. Because as you do things, all designers, we don't have one drawing going on at one time. We have 3 going on, and 5, and 7. And sometimes you work on multiple designs during the day. Sometimes you work on the one that your brain is going to work better on. I mean, if you're just sometimes you just don't have it. And if you can't, if your brain's not working, just get up, walk away, and go do something, and don't waste design time when you're not productive. But we want to keep our timesheets of these things. So when we're doing certain jobs, we're going to track the design time as far as what exact tasks we're doing. Because if you're doing, for example, if you're going to do a design for a client and you're going to do a 3D model or maybe even an animation, you should be hopefully charging for that, but even better, charging different rates for that. Design rate should be like the lowest. 3D modeling should be a higher rate because it's more specialized, and at least right now it's really starting to catch on. But the cross-section of landscape contractors right now doing 3D work is not that big, so it really makes you stand out. So you can charge a premium for that. And then when you get into animation type of software, then you can get into it even more. Because as you get into more specialized software, the price increases. For a normal design software, you'll spend somewhere of, I don't know, $2,500 to $3,000 or something like that for design software. You can buy just designing software for maybe $1,900 or $2,000. Not a big investment, really, for what you get. But when you get into something like an animation software, like maybe a Lumion, that's about a 34. Right now, it's $3,400, which still it's not a lot of money. Well, no, that's not true. $3,400 is a lot of money, but you have to think about what you're actually going to be able to provide your client, how it's going to make you look, how much more professional and advantageous it's going to be for you to show this stuff, because it's going to give you a big advantage over your competition. So as you spend money on these things, you know, it's like when you rent a car. You know, you don't get the same price. You don't rent a small Kia and a Jeep Grand Cherokee or a Cadillac Escalade at the same price, because they cost different, and they're more specialized, but they're more there's a difference in the quality and all that stuff, the investment. So even correspondences and consultation times, I don't really do this because it's just kind of part of the deal, and I don't want to nickel and dime people, but you know, when you're talking to people on the phone, if it's a 15-minute or 30-minute phone call, you really should put that down, because at the end of the week, if you have 25, let's say you have 35 hours of design time, you've got to account for what you did that other 5. And if that other 5 was you were consulting somebody, you were doing, like, here's a good example. When you're doing designs and you're charging for them, part of that responsibility is maybe calling the town, getting impervious coverage requirements, getting setback requirements, how far a pool needs to be off of a property line. All that stuff you really should be billing for, like attorneys do, and so put that down so you can bill for that. I mean, you know, if I have a phone call that goes 30 to 45 minutes, I might kind of think of that, because I'm not really getting anything done unless it's just really crucial information. But most of the time I don't do that. But I would do that if I were you. So know how much time is done on each task, and know how much revenue is produced by this input time. You'll be able to estimate how much design time and modeling time goes into these size projects. So here's a timesheet, and it's not that complicated, really. I just made this up quick on an Excel spreadsheet. I have it saved on my desktop, and whenever I start something and stop something, I do it. So let's kind of just go through a few of these, because I kind of did a little cross-section of this. So on the 19th of July, I worked, this is made up, so the rates are changed and names. I just made these up. I've never done a design for Joe Salemi, because he does everything himself. But anyway, so you work on the Sampson design, give it a job description of what you did. So I'm working on the back patio and the plantings, who the designer is. So for me, this is really not a big issue, because obviously I'm always doing my own drawings. But if this is something maybe you put on a server and you have 3 designers, that's where you'd have multiple names. Although I don't think that's, I think the best thing to do is just have an individual timesheet, not people putting in on one, because I think it'll get really confusing. So then you would show what the service is. So this, you should have a rate for design. You should be charging, I don't know, $55, $65, $75 to design. Like 3D modeling, 75 to 100, and I don't know, animation, maybe you do a little bit more, or you keep it the same if you don't think you can get too much more. What day you did it, when you started and stopped it, which was 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock, how many hours you worked, and what the rate was, and you calculate that, and you see how much design time you put in, or how much billable really time for that you did. For me, it's good because I can look through every day and see how much money I made. And one of the cool functions of Excel, if I had functionality I could do this, I would love to show you, but if you just highlight like this box here where it says column 4 through 7, I worked for the Salemis. I worked for Dan Weaver, who's a sales rep at DynaSCAPE. Mike Tripp, he's another one. And Bowser, I made that name up. But when you scroll these 4 numbers, at the bottom of your Excel sheet, you see how much you made. So I know if I had a productive day or a not productive day. I'll know if I goofed off a little bit or, you know, whatever. So this is a really good thing to do. And it seems kind of like a pain, but once you get in a habit of doing it, it's really kind of nice because as you get busier and busier and you get a lot of, and you get more design projects coming in, it's really nice to see and to refer back of how long it took to do something. So if I did something for my trip and I did a 3D model for just like maybe I spent 3 hours and 15 minutes on just showing him what his outdoor kitchen with his pavilion with the fireplace was. And I knew that took me 3.25 hours. So then the next time I do that for somebody else, I can refer to this and give them a really good gauge. And just like with estimating jobs, the more you dial in your production rates and you know as a company how long it takes you to do certain things, you're not going to overprice, or not overprice, but you're not going to overcharge or undercharge your clients for the installation work. And it's just like this too. You know you're giving somebody a fair price for a drawing. You need to make money because that's what we're all doing this for. We're not in here, I mean, we're here to have fun, but we're also here to have money or to make money. So the goal is to put a valuation on each design hour to job amount or revenue. So it was back, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago I started doing this, tracking how much work I could do per day. Just like, and I hate to keep going back to this, but I think it just really, the more we reference things that we know we do, it makes more sense. So a lot of contractors say, my crew, I need to charge, I don't know, whatever, 3 guys times 8 hours, let's say 10-hour days, 30 hours times billing at 55. So let's just say I bill my guys out at $2,000 a day or something like that. I need to be billing out X amount of dollars in materials a day. So as a designer, you should kind of know how much you can bill or estimate actually in a day. Not really billing, but almost like designing and estimating. So I started kind of watching my time, and I kind of saw where, I mean, it depends on, again, how well your brain is working. If you're having an off day and, you know, you might be stressed out, you're not really firing on all cylinders, but you know, in a normal day, I can do about $8,000 to $15,000 in design work, color rendering, and estimating the project in an hour. So if I have a good day and I have all the information I need as far as my site photos, a survey, I know really everything I need to do on the drawing, and I'm not kind of guessing what I'm supposed to do. In 8 to 10 hours, I should be able to do, you know, it's normally like, I don't know, whatever that math is, 8 times 8, 65,000, between like 60,000 and up, you know, 60 to 100, something like that. I can design, color, and estimate each day if everything's working right. And this, you know, this goes into, you know, it also depends on the scale of difficulty for a drawing. So if you're working on a kitchen, which kitchens just are, they're labor intensive because you have to make sure you're designing with the right spatial specs from, you know, if you're using Wolf or Weber grills or whatever, you need to make sure that you're spacing them out properly. So things like that take a little bit of time. So that will obviously reduce your how much you're going to be able to pump out. But it's the same thing when you guys are doing installations. If you're using a really labor-intensive veneer stone on a wall, you're obviously not going to be getting you're not going to be getting as much done as you would if it was something that was more modular or easier to install. So the goal is to accurately gauge how much time and cost will go into each design project. So this is something that Joe put in here, and about some time tracking apps that maybe if you don't feel like Excel is really something that you want to deal with, these are a couple that Joe could he'll walk you through what these two are.
Yeah, so there's been a couple of people that have been asking about the time tracking feature inside of DynaSCAPE Design. And there is, and so I think if you go into under environment and then drawing page settings, if you click on the drawing info, it gives you the name of the drawing, when it was created, when it was modified, and the total amount of time that's been spent on that drawing. That total amount of time essentially is how long it's been open.
Right.
So, while it's a good base framework, it's not probably the most specific. So instead, I've seen a good amount of time tracking apps because I look at them a lot. There's two that I really like. One is called Toggle, and that one, if you go to new.toggle.com, T-O-G-G-L, no E, it's really good. You put in the project that you're going to work on and the time pieces that you're going to work on, and you start and stop, really. They're really good. There's a free version, and then there's always a tiered level package with these kinds of apps that just you get the base features for free, and then if you want to be able to do more, you start paying. Smartsheet is a great one. I use this daily. It's got a great Gantt chart function, so you can set out your entire project and lay it out, and it gives you a great Gantt chart to be able to see where you're at from day to day or inside the week or the month. This one, Google just bought it, and so you can sign in with your Google account if you have one. Again, there's a free version, and with the more features you want to be able to use, the more you pay. And so my preference, and one that I use every day for internal projects within the DynaSCAPE office, is Smartsheet. It's a great timekeeping app. The time tracking feature inside of DynaSCAPE Design is under the environment menu button. Then click on drawing page settings, and after that you'll click on the drawing info button, and that's where you get all the information there.
So the neat thing about this is, well, like my timesheet, it really kind of pulls out of Dropbox. So if you have Dropbox on your phone, you can access your schedule anywhere. But the great thing about these is, I would assume, oh yeah, time tracking apps. That just answered my question. Yeah, so you can really get it anywhere. So if you're at somebody's house, you can log right in and see it, and you're not relying on bringing a piece of paper with you. So it's on the fly too. That's nice. So the design process. What I want to do is really get into what we need as designers, what we should be asking for to do our jobs right. So let's say we've got the right computer, we've got a great monitor, we know we're going to track our time and everything, we're ready to go. And we're starting to now get information. This is a big deal. File saving and file organization. I know, Joe, you've seen this too. You've seen some very well organized desktops. you showed a really good picture in one of our webinars before that we did on file organization, where like you couldn't even see the picture of the desktop background because there were so many icons on there. And I've seen this too on clients where I'll ask them, okay, so let's go to this drawing, or let's go to this, let's open up our plant picture folder, and they can't even find it. And that's where you just say stop. Like the guy on the Shark Tank always says, stop the madness. You know, it's madness. Do not create an environment where you can't even access your information, because that is just something that, you know, when you add up all the times it takes you to do things inefficiently, like let's take finding a file or a folder or a drawing. Every time you have to fumble around and find things, that adds up, and it adds up a lot over a year. I mean, if you could do an exercise, which you should be doing these, and I don't really, I do them sometimes. I'm going to start doing them more now that I'm getting busier, but like a really good exercise for you to do is write down everything you do during the day, and like, I don't know, maybe you could break it down to like everything I do well and everything I don't do well and everything that I'm just drive myself nuts over because I'm not doing it well enough, or I'm not doing it fast enough, or and those probably could fall into like repetition items. So those repetition items are the things that if you could track those over a week or a month and really see how much time you're bleeding out of your day, those are the things that you really want to get under control. The landscape industry is a very demanding industry, and we all know that we sign up for a job and we have a salary for 40 hours a week and we end up working 60, and you know, just we're always working and working and working. And the more we can get rid of these things that we're wasting time on, the better. So, I mean, that was a lot of explaining about a folder, but this is one of those things. So this is a way that I have found is a great way to organize my folders. And I didn't invent this. This is something I picked up at a company where I worked, and he was really meticulous about his file organization so somebody or everybody could find it. So here's your customer. We're working for Joe Salemi and his wife. They're going to do a back patio or whatever. So in the Salemi folder, we break it down into all the different files. So all the before pictures should be in one folder. Any drawings should be in another folder. Scans and surveys is a folder where you're going to put in things like, hopefully you can get a survey from your customer, or so you'll put the survey in there. Let's say that they sent you a sketch of what they wanted, or your boss kind of doodled on something. All of those things that are like a survey or sketches would go into scans and surveys. Or if the town sent you, they faxed you some information about a job, put that in scans and surveys. 3D, that could be your 3D model. And actually that could even on the bottom, it should, and I didn't do this, but it should have 3D renders. So then if you want to email a client, hey, this is something that we've done in the past, this is why we're going to charge you money to do this, you really quickly go to 3D renders. The 3D folder could be where you have a Lumion model, or a SketchUp model, or a Rhino model, or a whatever kind of software model you have. So what this does is it enables you, it's almost like a pathway. So like if you save all your things in Dropbox, again, it would be fun to be able to click through these, but all you would do is well, let's just make desktop. You click on your desktop, then you have a folder that would be called 2016 clients. You click on that. Then in there are all your client names. Then you click on Selemi. Then you click on befores, and you're right where you need to be. So it's a very sequential, organized pathway, so you know where you're going. For AutoCAD or like DynaSCAPE users, we would have a folder. You'd want like a plant images folder. You would want a SketchUp figures folder. You'd want a textures folder. And then in those, like the DynaSCAPE Sketch 3D components, whenever I use them, I save them into the folders. So when I go to DS SketchUp, which is DynaSCAPE SketchUp folder, then I have a bunch of folders that says accessories, shrubs, perennials, fireplaces, whatever. So if I need to get a beer bottle, which I put in every model and they look great, they render awesome, and it's a DynaSCAPE beer bottle. People love seeing those things in models. If I need to grab a DynaSCAPE beer bottle or a wine bottle or a champagne or whatever, I can go very quickly to that, and I'm not wasting time looking for it. So the accuracy of our drawings, and this is kind of like this could really be called like accuracy and like upfront information if you really wanted to add to that a title a little bit better. But always try to ask for a survey for your drawings, and I'm sure everybody knows this, but I think it's under asked. And why spend more time out modeling, or not modeling, but why spend more time out measuring a site when you could just be verifying with a survey? They save a ton of time, and you know, here's a great way to get a survey, and a couple reasons why. Number one, a lot of municipalities now are really buckling down on impervious coverage. So permits are a pretty important part of that. But the town is not going to just take some drawing and, well, most towns are not going to just take some drawing that you've done and you've done your calculations and they're going to give you a permit. They want to know they want to see the survey. They want they want you to overlay the work on the survey so they see the work area and all kinds of stuff. If you don't have a survey, I mean, there were jobs that I couldn't sell them without a survey. So number one, that's great when you can tell somebody we cannot get this job permitted and we can't build it without a survey. And number two, it saves you a lot of time. And when you tell them it's going to take me more time, your design is going to cost more because I'm going to have to spend an hour or two more measuring this. It's a miracle. It's miraculous how all of a sudden people kind of know where their survey is when they know it's going to cost them another $100 because you have to measure. So that's a great thing to be able to do to try to helps you sell design fees too. So you want to take accurate measures or measurements that allow you or your designer to easily prepare a base sheet. So this is I didn't put this in the slide, but I call this a base grid. And I was in Virginia working with a really cool design build company, and their designers are real sharp. So we really got some really cool things accomplished. And one of the things we kind of like between me and them invented was called a base grid. And in DynaSCAPE design, you're able to, it's called a Cartesian something, but a Cartesian array. Yeah, Cartesian array. And what it allows you to do is take your sheet and offset like literally the click of a button lines, and you can do basically you're creating a grid sheet, or you're creating grid paper just like we would buy at a draft store. So you can basically create a grid paper in DynaSCAPE Design. And so what we did was we made a couple different sizes. We did like 5 foot, 1 foot, and 10 foot, and you could probably do 20. So then you can save those as a template. You could save them as a prototype within the software. You can call it 1 inch equals 10, base grid, whatever. Or you can just save it as a drawing file in a folder. But what you can do with those is trace your survey and then float that survey before you even go to the site, if you're lucky enough to do that. Float that survey right on that grid and align the house to those grid blocks. And you print that whole sheet and you take it with you. And then, so when you're measuring trees and everything else, all you're doing is counting squares, and it's perfect. And it's not chicken scratch. It makes sense. We've all gone out and measured sites, and we drew measurements, and we drew all these lines, and then it looks nothing like the site does because our scale was so goofed up. So at minimum, do your site inventory and analysis stuff with grid paper. That makes a big difference. If you're lucky enough to get a survey beforehand, do that. It helps even better when you go. Now, ideally, the most efficient sales call is one where you can go see the site, get all your information, and get out of there, and you're not going back. Or you could be a company that's structured as like you're a salesperson, but then you have somebody go in behind you. Like if the owner goes and sees a site and says, hey, I got the survey, they want to design, he hands it to you, the designer, that's where you can prepare it and take it out. So, you know, a bigger site, if it's a big site that would make a lot more sense, it's almost like you have to see which is smarter use of your time. Do I want to spend 3 hours measuring this site with chicken scratch paper, or do I want to drive back to the office, it'll take me 15 minutes to do that, and come back another day, and I can spend half the time? So if you're going to spend the same amount of time to do it either way, why not rack your why make yourself nuts by trying to make something look as real as you can so it makes sense to you? Why do that when you could just spend go do that base grid? I think I did that in a webinar, right, Joe? I think I did. I think I did. So base grids. So this is a drawing. It's okay. It's a survey that there are some dimensions on there, but yeah, it took me a little while to kind of figure this out. I mean, let's take, for example, this existing walk-in patio. The best way to do this would have been to give me a center point of this patio and a radius or a diameter off of the corner. Can you see my mouse, Joe?
Yep.
Good. So if this were me measuring it, I would have, where'd my mouse go? There it goes. I would have measured maybe out this way and over this way and put my little dot there and maybe put CP and then just drew the circle with the diameter radius. Because otherwise what I'm doing here is I'm drawing a circle and then I'm like offsetting a line here, offsetting a line there, and moving the circle up to try to hit those 2 points. And it's just too much work. And you know, when you're charging customers for drawings and you're trying to get things as you can, you do not want to be spending more time trying to get your base sheet done than it takes to actually do the drawing. And so it's kind of questionable about some certain things here. You know, like right here, these steps are 5 foot, that's 5 foot stair. I'm assuming each one of these is a 12-inch tread. So, but the more you have to assume and try to figure out, that's not good. So you get the right information. And if some of your crew or team, your boss or whoever is these, and you're not getting the right information, don't. I mean, I'm at a point now where I am actually someone who does this work with me on my team is starting to put together a really nice package of we need right. And I will take that I can't I won't start. You know, why spend more time doing it and wasting all that time and not really making any headway? So, you know, it's kind of hard to tell your boss, no, I'm not doing it. But when you can tell them, listen, this is going to take me 3 times longer to do to figure out, and I might have to go back to the site. Just sit with him and have a meeting and say, listen, here's how I'd want to do it. Here's how it, you know, designers and production people are completely different brains. And one of the difficulties in this industry is getting those people to see eye to eye. But the more they can communicate and the more your owner knows what you need to be a good designer and a productive one, the better. So have a meeting with him, or even better, go to a site and just measure it together and let him see what you need, and after a couple, he'll give you what you need. But don't just take this and kind of run with it and hope you're going to do it right and then hand it back to him and hope it's right, because he's going to be mad because you didn't do it right, and he's also going to say, or she's going to say, why didn't you tell me you needed the information? And then you've kind of got your foot in your mouth. There's really no excuses for that. So you need to be responsible to put your foot down and say when you're getting the right information or you're not. And you know, give your boss or whoever positive reinforcement, like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I need. This is great. Thank you very much. This is great right here. I could do this base sheet 3 times faster I can than this. Look at the difference. This is not real square. This has all the measurements of all of these walls. It's perfect. The only thing that's missing is maybe these 45s, but I probably, you know, these are like, I don't know. This is something we probably have to verify depending on what the scope of the work is. If I'm only doing beds around the outside here, I'm not really going to worry about how exact this is, but if we're doing borders and pavers and stuff that our linear footage and some square footage is going to depend on the accuracy of it, then that's a big deal. But you'll know when you're going to need more information. But this is great. Like taking pictures. This picture right here really is not that helpful because you have no idea where this is. The marigolds are doing really...
Right?
What?
Patrick, it's not in relation to anything. You can't get any sort of scale.
Yeah, I don't know if it's in the front. I don't know if it's the back. The only thing I know is they're doing a good job fertilizing their marigolds and they're growing in the shade. Well, it's probably the sun at that time, but they look great, but really not a good way to conceal your well pump. So there's some other issues going on there. Grass looks good though. But anyway, so this is something you just basically like delete this photo because it's absolutely worthless. But if this was taken far away, like this picture at the bottom, that's awesome. This right here is what you want to be doing, especially if you're 3D modeling. This would be a cinch to know where everything is with a 3D model. I can see where my windows are. I can see where that little pipe is. I know where my electric box is. It's great. So that's just night and day difference of how to get your photos. You can get close-up photos, but just get really well-rounded photos. So maximizing your site time, the more pictures you take, or take more pictures than you think you need. Why be lazy and take 10 when you could spend 2 more minutes and take 20 or 30 more and get everything you need? The worst thing in the world is to be working on a drawing and realize that you do not have a side of the house or whatever and you have no clue what's going on. And you either do one of two things. You guess on it and hope that you don't look like a ding-dong when you take the drawing back to them and it's not even accurate, or now you have to waste your time and go back. So please don't wing it and be a ding-dong, because the biggest, in my opinion, mistake is to show it with a drawing that at least does not have the existing conditions accurate, because if you don't have that accurate, the first thing they're going to think is, if they can't even get something accurate that's in the ground now, how are they going to even get anything accurate that's not? Went through that. Close-up pictures and distant pictures are fine as long as this close-up picture has a little bit of a reference point in back of it. So do not cripple your design process because you don't know what you're working with. So this is pretty cool. This was a grid that a customer sent me of grades, and they were 10-foot grids. So what I was able to do is I could do my drawing kind of with this on like another monitor or on the other side of my monitor, and then I could take my design and float it right on this grid and know where all my grades of my patio needed to be, kind of where my steps needed to go, pitch and slopes and all those things. So this is great because I knew really from any distance, like 10 feet out, it's 3'8" drop, 4'5" drop, 5'2" drop. Pretty cool. So getting your good site elevations is crucial. I don't think I needed this many. That's kind of a lot, but you know what? They were there. So it helps you figure out where your steps are, how high your walls are going to be, how to terrain, what the terrain is. Especially, that's crucial when you're 3D modeling, to get the terrain right. This one, when there was a pretty steep slope from here to here, so I needed to kind of get an idea of that. So when I did the model, we could grade it so the slope looks accurate. And this is, this is just common sense, but this is so crucial because these steps and walls, those are the most expensive parts most of the time of any hardscape project. Steps and walls just kill us, and we've got to make sure we have our heights and everything on these, or we're going to just lose our shirts. So progress proofs. So we have all of our information. We're starting to do the drawing, and now we need to start getting to the point where we can submit this to our customer. And one of the things I used to do, and I still do, is, and it kind of pacifies your customer a little bit, it lets them know you're on their project, is by providing them progress proofs. So what that is you do a drawing and you're working through it, and there are points you hit in a drawing where it's like a choose your own adventure. You can go one way or the other, and you can take the wrong route or the right route. And the more we can take the right route in a design, the faster we're going to get to where we need to go with less hiccups. So let's just use an example of let's say the owner gave you this project to work on. They know exactly what it needs to be. So you work through the drawing up to a point where you think it looks good, but you want to make sure it looks like you're on the right track. Save as a PDF, email it to your boss or your salesperson, and say, what do you think? I'm liking this, but I want to make sure that you have I have your blessing before I keep barreling through. They're going to love that because they're going to realize you're being conscientious, and you want to make sure, and they know that you're being smart with your time. Now, what you don't want to do is start giving them a progress proof every day, because then they're going to get, first of all, they're going to get tired of it. And if you're a designer like me who owns a design business, if I was spitting these things out to my customers every day, first of all, they get tired of hearing from me, and second, they'd start wondering who's really doing the drawing and why they're even paying me to do it when they're figuring it all out themselves. So don't overkill it, but try to throw these things out. Now with homeowners, I'll tell you, homeowners have changed so much in the last 7 to 8 years where, you know, you used to be able to tell them 2 to 3 weeks for a drawing. If you tell them that now, they go nuts. So what do you do about that? Well, once you hopefully sell the design fee, and if you don't, oh well, but you should, uh, do some of the drawing, save it as a PDF, and just shoot it to them and say, hey, I just thought I'd let you know I'm working on your drawing. What do you think so far? What they're going to think is this. It's all psychological. They're going to know you're paying attention to them. They're going to know you're spending time on it, and they're going to know that you didn't forget about them, and they're not getting pushed behind everybody else, because that's one of the big complaints in the industry is am I going to get pushed behind somebody else or whatever? You know, it's kind of first come, first serve. So it really puts them at ease. So you can drag it out a little bit if they just know that you're working on it, and they, you know, most customers kind of enjoy the interaction because they can play around with that a little bit too. And why not get a little bit of their feedback along the way to maximize the let me say that a different way, to achieve the best results of when you get to a presentation. So what you really want to be careful of, though, is if you're not charging for drawings, I would not really be sending progress proofs. What's going to happen is you're gonna be giving them something and you're never going to hear from them again. So they'll help you get good productive feedback. They're going to reduce your revision time. My revision time is probably about 5%. So the more that you can get this feedback, the quicker you're going to get to the correct drawing. So, and again, you're going to show your client you value their input and you care what they have to say. So, you know, I talked about this a minute ago. Just maintain an open, clear, and constant communication between the designers and the sales team. Know your design costs as you design them. Have a cheat sheet next to you that kind of tells you how much money per square foot pavers and linear foot of walls. So as you work through it, you are designing to the right budget before you show up. And just keep a sheet next to you of general pricing. And that will really help when you are working through this so you're not over-designing or under-designing a project. So your designs will hopefully be built, so plan ahead for all of this. Source your materials from as few vendors as possible. Try to keep it simple. You know, when you're to be profitable in production, the less places you go to pick up materials, the better. Source materials that your crews are knowledgeable with, and if you want to use some materials that you are going to experiment with, maybe do it at the yard or something, or on a smaller job so you can get past that learning curve. So that's kind of a wrap up for me, and I'll turn it back to you, Joe, and you can maybe field some questions we have.
Thanks, Patrick. So there's been a number of questions that have come through, and a lot of people might have mistook the intention of the webinar and thought there might be some demonstrations inside of the software today, but no, that was not our intention. It was more about the profitability. But we will take that, and you know, maybe for a future webinar we can show how the software can significantly contribute to a profitable design process. But we wanted to talk about everything else around that. But we will definitely address that. Someone wanted to see your actual setup in your design studio, but I'm not sure if you had a picture of that or not.
Well, not where it wouldn't be clunky and.
Yeah, not so we won't put you on the spot to
yeah, I mean, I have to find it.
Okay.
You know, if they wanted one, I could send you a picture of it, and they can get it from.
Maybe we can post that when I send out the recording.
Yeah, maybe you could do that.
Yeah. Now, someone else asked about Lumion, and now I know that you've just started to get into Lumion and play around with it and sort of test it out in your own environment using your own SketchUp models. how has that been for you, and is that something that you would suggest to the others on this webinar?
Yeah, so I'm good friends with Daniel Tall and Michael Brightman, and they're big into Lumion, and they've been pestering me for 2 or 3 years to buy Lumion and telling me how much of a whatever I am because I'm not doing it. And I finally just bit the bullet and I got it. And I always kind of had this thing against it where I didn't think it looked as real as like shader light that I still use. But what I'm finding in Lumion is the time from when I model to actually get to my renders is absolutely reduced, huge, big time. So if you have the money to do it, get it. I am having a real struggle right now, though, because I'm so used to using DynaSCAPE Design and SketchUp, and I've got the navigation perfect, and now I'm throwing a third piece of software in here that moving and navigating around a screen is completely, it's like almost all keyboard-ish, and I'm having a real struggle like navigating around a model. So what I'm going to be doing is just literally sitting on the couch and practice just moving around a screen for a while to get that that muscle memory going. But
Yeah, so
it's
that might be something for those that that are just starting out. Lumion might be a little much to add to the mix right now, but a plugin like ShaderLite, while is not as robust as Lumion, probably still the best value for the dollar for this.
yes, yeah, you can get ShaderLite for $300. It's super duper heavy on your processor. So you really need a heavy processor to render them so you're not spending a lot of time. But ShaderLite is a very easy program, and I've done some renders that just are incredibly realistic. But yes, start out, do that. But you got to be good at 3D modeling first because you're not modeling in Lumion. You're modeling in SketchUp and sending it to Lumion. Lumion is more like kind of a finishing off of your model.
Yeah, and just one last question before we wrap up today. Um, Someone picked up on the fact that you were using a MacBook Pro and want to know if you're using DynaSCAPE Design in Color on that MacBook Pro and whether you preferred Parallels or Boot Camp installations for Windows. I have my own views, but I'll let you speak to that.
Your views and mine are probably the same. You kind of dragged me into this Mac thing, but well, first of all, I read an article a month or two ago that they found that Windows runs better on a Mac than a PC, and after using a Mac, I kind of believe it. DynaSCAPE runs just absolutely beautifully on Windows 10 on a Mac. I'm running it on Boot Camp. The reason why is when you're running it on Parallels, there is some functionality that doesn't work as designed on the Windows side as far as shift and control and some inference settings that if those aren't important to you in design, you could run it in Parallels probably okay, but for me, navigating around a screen is like a huge thing. So if you're willing, I mean, here's what my opinion is for a MacBook like this one, it's like a $24, $500, $600 computer. And what I'm not thrilled about is I'll bet you since I bought this thing like 5-6 months ago, I've had the Mac side on for maybe 20 minutes. So I literally bought it because they are so good on the Windows side and the resolution. But if you really love Macs and you really wish you could do DynaSCAPE on a Mac, just do it and run Boot Camp. The one thing I don't like about the Parallels option too is you're splitting resources. So if you have Parallels open, you have to allocate a certain, you probably know more about this, Joe, than me, but you've got to allow a certain amount of RAM for each side, and I like to have the most power I can get in where I'm working.
Yeah, and we did a previous webinar on going through all of those settings. You're maximizing all of your resources by installing Boot Camp and then having a a naturalized version of Windows on your
Yeah,
machine rather than
right,
a
right.
virtualized version. But you can check that out in one of our previous webinars. We will send the link to all of Patrick's previous webinars in the email that I send out with the recording to this one. So Patrick, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome.
We did run a little bit over time, but
No, I'm sorry about that.
no, it's all good. People are very appreciative of your time and the knowledge that you're transferring on. So thank you so much to
Sure.
everyone listening on the webinar. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you joining us today. I'm Joe Salemi. I'm the Product Marketing Manager with DynaSCAPE. My contact information is on the screen. If you have any questions, any suggestions for future webinars, please pass them along, and we'll see what we can do. Thanks so much, and hope you can join us again next time. Thanks so much, Patrick.
You're welcome. Take care.
You too.